Yeah. Can't really come up with the normal level of enthusiasm when I know I have this kind of work in front of me. When we last left you on the Weege Show, I was planning on racing a GNCC on Sunday morning, and I did that, and the bike didn't get me to the finish line because what I also had to do was prep the battery, which had died because I basically raced a GNCC last July, rolled my bike into here, and then left it, and the battery was dead. I was messing around with terminals and chargers and jump starters, and then the battery terminal came loose, and my bike died an hour and 45 minutes into a 2-hour race, which ruined what probably would have been the best result I ever had. And now you can see the electrical tape because there were electrical problems, and we had to perform an autopsy, and I didn't feel like bolting the bike back together nor cleaning it because I'm upset. And also, I haven't had a lot of time to clean it because, believe it or not, it's Tuesday and it's already race day. We have been in full Supercross race coverage on Racer X, and that's normally what we do is talk Supercross, so that's what we're going to do on the Weege Show. But I did want to show you my garage has this space left over. Could be filled out quite nicely by a Honda Talon Sport Side-by-Side. Honda sent me one. It would go nicely with the Ridgeline. Yes, the Ridgeline can tow enough to pull a Talon Sport Side-by-Side. It's not like I care about putting the old minivan in the garage. We'll just put a Talon right here, and we'll take the family out, and we'll get to enjoy some great statistics like 1,000 cc's of power, a dual clutch transmission, 20.1 inches of rear wheel travel on the R model, or the more maneuverable X model. That'd probably work better for me, but beggars can't be choosers. The Honda Talon Sport Side-by-Side. Statistically, you put it on paper, it's a great thing to put in your garage. And while I was thinking of statistics and putting things down on paper, when I was driving back from the GNCC and trying to take my mind off of my bike dying in the race because I'm a terrible mechanic, I started thinking about the Supercross on Saturday. I was listening back to the press conference. Justin Barcia, kind of a quiet, underrated second place in that main event. The big heat, obviously, was Cooper Webb winning. Arlington won. As we go to Arlington 2, he now has the red plate on his KTM, and his bike is probably being cleaned between his last race and now, unlike mine. But Barcia's second place is significant because Barcia said at round one he didn't want to be a one-hit wonder like he has in previous seasons. And so far, he's a one-hit wonder. He's only won one race, and that's the opener. But it seems like Barcia's been better this year. It seems like the drop-off from round one through the rest of the season hasn't been as extreme as the previous 2 years. It seems like he's been better on this gas than he was on the Yamaha. It seems that way, but I wanted to look into it. So I looked at the point standings after 10 rounds last year and this year, and I was shocked to see that Barcia has scored significantly fewer points through 10 rounds this year than he did last year. Now, there was a bad circumstance earlier in the year where he came into the back of Vince Friese and went from 3rd to 19th, so that's probably about the gap of points that we're looking at right now. But even still, if he had podium that night, it would be the same. Same amount of points last year to this year. That is shocking. And I'm thinking about this because going into the season, I know some folks at Yamaha were afraid that Barcia's underratedly well 2020 Supercross season would be forgotten. And if he performed pretty well in 2021, everyone was just going to say, oh, he's so much better on the gas, which is really a KTM. And obviously, KTM gets a lot of love nowadays. It's not their fault that the battery terminal came loose. So really, Barcia has been about the same. And if you're a Yamaha person, you're saying to yourself, see, it hasn't been as dramatic an improvement as you think when you look at the stats. And when you look at the stats, you see all kinds of interesting information. I've got them printed out right here, and I'll put them on the screen because it's certainly more fun to look at than stuff inside my garage. Here's what is shocking. If you look at the top three in points, it's the same three guys, and I've been saying that all year long. But look at how similar the amount of points they've all scored compared to each other this year are. Your points leader this year, Webb, 223. Tomac last year at this point, 226. And Ken Roczen, who, just like Barcia, does it not seem like Ken Roczen is way, way better this year than last year? Well, somehow he actually scored more points through 10 rounds last year than this year. And then there's Eli Tomac. He's struggling. We know that a championship is a long shot. He's 7 points worse than the third place man a year ago, who was Webb. Shocked that Barcia doesn't have more points than he did at this point last year, and shocked that Roczen doesn't have more points than he did at this point last year. And one other thing that really jumps off the page, Malcolm Stewart. We joke about this in our post-race podcast. Steve Mathis made this one. Don't want to give him credit, but Malcolm Stewart, who used to be all about heat race Mookie and flash and sizzle and one-lap wonders and amazing things that he could do in the whoops, He has now become the Mike LaRocco of the class, just a solid rock. You don't see him up front at the beginning of the race, but he will give you everything you want. He won't cheat you on effort, and he'll be there hovering around the top 5 at the end of the race. Like to have a few more podiums like LaRocco did, I'm sure. And LaRocco did win some races, but the consistency of Mookie has been unbelievable to the point where he has scored the exact same amount of points through 10 rounds this year and last year, 152. Now, that's an interesting one because, again, this is odd, right? So Barcia goes from Yamaha to Gas, and I think everyone expected Barcia to get better. Mookie goes from the Bullfrog Spas Smart Top Moto Concepts Honda team to a factory-level Yamaha with Monster Energy Star Racing, and I think everyone expected him to take a step up. And it does seem, again, like he's been better, but he has scored the exact same amount of points. So here's something interesting with that. If you are Tony Alessi, and there's only one of them, it's not you, but if you're Tony Alessi and you look into every single aspect of racing, there is no doubt in my mind, no doubt, I'd put money on it, that Tony has looked at the standings and said, he switched to a factory team and he's not doing any better than he did when he was with us. And if you're the Smart Top team, you need to have a silver lining like that because it has been a rough year for them. You've had Brock Tickle, normally as rock solid as it gets. He's kind of like a Malcolm Stewart, I guess. Can't believe I'm saying that. He's been bouncing in and out of main events, hitting the ground. Shane McElrath has been in and out of the series with injuries. Vince Friese looked very fast at the beginning of the year, but went down early and has been battered and bruised ever since. Benny Bloss, we just continue to wait for that breakthrough, but he hits the ground a lot. It feels like every rider on that team is like 70 or 80% health-wise. It has been a rough year for Smart Top, Bullfrog Spas, Moto Concepts, so I think they need a little silver lining, and there is no doubt in my mind that Tony Alessi has already looked at these stats and has said, yep, here's a silver lining. Malcolm scored the exact same amount of points on our bike than the supposed upgrade of going to a factory team. That's the kind of stuff that only Tony Alessi would look into, but now you know as well. I just thought it was really interesting to compare the points this year and last year at this stage, which leads us to an obvious question of how will they change tonight? I can't believe we already have another race on our hands. We all know how pivotal this one is. The Roczen Webb thing heating up. Webb, as I mentioned in our post-race show from Saturday night, he's doused those flames. Can Roczen get fired back up? Can Roczen fire back? It's a start cross in so many ways in 2021. It's probably going to come down to that. If Roczen starts up front, if he stays there, that's huge. If he doesn't, that's probably even huger. By the way, I just want to mention, I don't have numbers on my bike. My buddy put a big W in electrical tape so people would know it was Weege riding by. I'm racing on a dual sport with no numbers. Let me show you this. Let me show you this. This side panel here, I broke the original side panels off. So my buddy had this one for free, so I stuck that on there. My bike doesn't even match side to side. Looking good, right? Looking good. Are you impressed with this? Here's something that looks much better, and that is Seth Hamaker. I've always been a Hamaker fan. I'm just kind of a sucker for the young rider that doesn't go with the full training facility route because I still want to believe that the moto parents out there don't have to go that all in that early and still have a chance at their kid having success. I think that's cool. Hamaker is from Pennsylvania. He actually did spend a lot of time in Pennsylvania. I think in his latter years, he did some real riding and prep for the big races like Loretta's at a training facility, but he didn't leave Pennsylvania and move to the Southeast like most people do at a young age. And it is already panning out for him. His pro debut was a little bit delayed with injuries and illness, but since he's turned pro, he's obviously been very good. So shout out to him. I thought that was really exciting. And this wild 250 season has just led to all these experiences that I don't think a lot of these riders expected to get. You got Cameron McAdoo winning races, leading points, feeling what that's like. Hamaker winning a race immediately, feeling what that's like. Styles Robertson got the experience of leading a lot of laps at our last race at Daytona and finishing up on the podium. Pierce Brown, unfortunately, he's back out now with a thumb injury, but he got to experience podium. And we saw it in the 250 East, Christian Craig and Colt Nichols getting to battle for a championship. Nichols was in it a couple years ago in the West, but this is really the first time Craig has been embroiled in a points fight like that. And Hunter Lawrence, man, that had to feel good. Finally getting a podium in Supercross after such a rough run. I know deep down inside that Hunter has wanted to show the world that he can ride Supercross. And over the last two races, with a heat race win at Daytona and the second place, and closing on Hamaker actually late in the main event on Saturday night, Hunter has kind of proven that. So a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about how weird the 250 class has been, where we've lost a lot of big hitters, and we haven't really replaced them with guaranteed success talent yet. It's opened the door for a lot of riders to get experience that maybe they wouldn't have gotten under normal circumstances, and they're going to be all the better for it. Obviously, guys like McAdoo and Hammaker are going to have a lot more confidence now, and they'll be a lot more relaxed the next time they're in a position to win a race, which is going to make them that much more formidable in the class through the future. So that really looks good, I think, to get guys like that. And McAdoo, kind of like Hammaker, not super heralded as an amateur. And also another win for Tony Alessi, because he first got noticed as an amateur by Tony. I remember rolling up to the Daytona Amateur Supercross a few years ago, and I'm like, oh no, Tony is here at an amateur race. Tony's back. Tony's back in the amateur scene. And I said, who are you working with? And he said, that's Cameron McAdoo. He beat that, what's that kid's name? Forkner? Tony probably knew the name, but he was confident that McAdoo could beat Forkner, which absolutely sounded crazy at that time. And then I thought Tony was lying. And then I actually looked at their heat race from earlier in the day, and McAdoo had beat Forkner. Throughout that week at the RCSX, McAdoo started better than Forkner. He didn't hold him off every time, but he gave Forkner all he could handle in every race. And from there, he was able to transition into a pro deal with Moto Concepts, and then on to other factory teams, and now he finds himself carrying the red plate and battling for a title. That's another win you can give Tony Alessi right there. I just love when the underdog shows that there are different ways to get it done, and we're seeing proof of that now more than ever. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'll probably explore it in another episode of the show. Anyway, I've got to clean up bikes and work on them and get ready for a race that's starting, practice right now. Oh, guess I'm not going to have time to work on the bikes. Sweet, time to go inside and watch some Supercross.